lecture session. I'm the moderator, Ali Wibisono, and I'm also the convener of this module. And together with us this fine morning, we have Admiral Professor Jayanath Colombage, Ambassador of Sri Lanka to Indonesia. Perhaps a little bit of a background information about the event, Professor. This is a guest lecture session of the module that I'm convening, Evolution of International Security Studies, and it is for undergraduate level student in International Relations Department. We proudly have an array of modules on international security, including non-traditional security, and then revolution and military affairs. So we want to keep a study on international security developing in this university. So together with us this morning, we will discuss issues of maritime security in the Indian Ocean. Maritime security is part of the module as well, but I think we delve into the complexities of Indian Ocean, which may have its own particularities compared to South China Sea, but I believe it's not immune from the implications of geopolitical rivalry. Right? If in the South China Sea we are looking at U.S.-China rivalry, I presume perhaps in the Indian Ocean we're looking at India-China rivalry, but of course there's more than that. There are also issues of non-traditional security like piracy, maritime terrorism, and so I think it is apt that this session we have this morning is to discuss also in particular Sri Lanka's maritime strategy for military, perhaps more particularly naval deployments in contingencies in the Indian Ocean. Let me read out Professor Jayanath's CV shortly. Admiral Professor Jayanath Colombage has served in the Sri Lanka Navy for a period of 36 years and retired as the commander of the Navy on the 1st of July in 2014. So His Excellency is a scholar, a diplomat, and a professor. Yeah, highly decorated, highly educated. He is a graduate of Defense Service Staff College in India and Royal College of Defense Studies, United Kingdom. He holds a PhD from General Sir John Kotelawala, Defense University, Sri Lanka, with a doctoral thesis, Asymmetric Warfare at Sea, the case of Sri Lanka, and is now already published. We would love to have a read on that, sir. His Excellency holds MSc on Defense and Strategic Studies from Madras University and MA on International Studies from King's College, London. He is also a PhD examiner at the University of Colombo, a visiting lecturer at Defense Services Command and Staff College, Sri Lanka, Kotelawala Defense University, and Bandaraneke International Diplomatic Training Institute. He is a Fellow of Nautical Institute, London, UK. Admiral Colombage is a guest professor at Sichuan University in China and an adjunct professor at National Institute of South China Sea Studies, Haikou, China. In addition, he has been a guest lecturer in several key universities and research institutes in Bangladesh, India, Japan, and Pakistan. He has also been an editor and reviewer of a number of international renowned academic journals. In addition, he has served as Director General of Institute of International Security Studies in Sri Lanka as well. So I think from here on, Professor, we are looking at multiple avenues where we can work together academically and professionally. I think without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Professor Jayanath Colombage. Please, sir.
Thank you. Okay, good morning everyone. Pa Ali, thank you very much. We had a brief interaction before I came to the lecture hall today, and I see that we have a lot of common areas of interest on counter-terrorism, cyber-security, and now maritime security also. So thank you very much for being here to share my thoughts with you. I'm ambassador, so I will not talk much. But I think I must convince you that I can talk about this topic. Because why should an ambassador come and talk to you about maritime security? So I have a slide presentation, and of course I spent 36 years in the Indian Ocean, and that's where my home is, of course. But in addition to being my home, I have actually worked in the ocean 36 years, so that is why I rose to the rank of Lakshmana, the 4-star. And then I have been involved in academic work, and as Ali said that oceans are becoming very, very important in today's matters. Now Indonesia is in a very strategically important location. Why? Because you are the confluence between the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. You link the two, because one side of you, especially Sumatra, the Aceh, is in the Indian Ocean, right? And the rest of 5,000 kilometers of your beautiful land is in the Western Pacific. So you are called the confluence of the ocean, or you are the center of Indo-Pacific, or you are the fulcrum, they say, right? So I think I just wanted to mention that every country in the ocean say they are the most important. Every country, right? Why? Because they have reasons to say that, right? If you look at Pakistan, they will say we are in the most strategically vulnerable, important location because they are so close to Strait of Hormuz, and they are part bordering with India, part bordering with Afghanistan, part bordering Iran, part bordering China. So every country has its own way of saying how important geostrategically, geopolitically, and geoeconomically. Now I use the word geo 3 times, and you know what is geo is geography. Right? Geography is critically important now. Geography is critically important in the 21st century. So geography connected with strategic, we say geostrategic. Geography connect with economics, we say geoeconomic. Geography connect with politics, we say geopolitics. So this word, the buzzword is geography, which is the most common denominator. So why talk about maritime security? Is it important for us? Right? One reason is 95% of internationally traded goods are carried by the ocean. 95% of internationally traded goods are carried by the ocean, by ships, not by aircraft. Of course, passengers more by aircraft, but goods, right? So you can imagine if this 95% of internationally traded goods are blocked, interrupted, destroyed, disturb, what will happen to us? Our economies will all fail. Not only China's economy, not only US economy, we all will go down if the maritime trade is interrupted. Right? So that is the number one reason why we should be really concerned about maritime security. Now, Ali mentioned that South China Sea, because Indonesia, especially Natuna Island, is part of the South China Sea. Of course, you don't have a big dispute with China, but if you look at the 9-dash line, it includes Natuna area as well. Your EEZ is part of that 9-dash line. But that is the reality that we have to live with, right? China is a major power, so that they draw a line and say, okay, this is our area, right? Now, I think we all know, okay, how many oceans are there in the world? How many? 7. Okay, what are the 7? Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, Mediterranean is a sea. Arctic, Antarctic. Well done. Actually, you are right, spot on. There are 5 oceans, but many other seas. Baltic Sea, Mediterranean Sea, the Gulf of Strait of Hormuz, many other seas, but there are 5. And if you look at Pacific Ocean is the biggest, Atlantic is the second, Indian is the third largest ocean in the world. Now, if you look at this slide on your screen, right, Indian Ocean is highlighted with blue, right? Now, next slide, please. So, if you look at the oceans, you mentioned 5. Indian Ocean is the only ocean named after a country, right? Indian Ocean is the only ocean. Pacific is not a country. Atlantic, not a country. Arctic is a region, right? But Indian Ocean is named after India. Why so? Have you ever thought of that? Why? Or how did that happen? You see, in the ancient times, when the Europeans wanted to come into this region, they didn't know how to come. Right? In fact, our region was highly developed with trade, maritime Silk Route, ancient spice route. We were connected and highly developed. But the Europeans were still fighting in the jungles, like Robin Hood, right? So they have heard so much about this area, they wanted to come, but they didn't know how to come. So they came down the Atlantic Ocean, rounding Cape of Good Hope, South Africa, and they said, oh my God, this is India. Everything east of Cape of Good Hope is East Indies. Now, I'm sure you are familiar with the word East Indies. Why? Indonesia was under the Dutch East Indies colony, right? So that is how everything east of Cape of Good Hope, East Indies, everything west is the West Indies. So now you know why we call the West Indies, those Bahamas, those islands, right? So, Indian Ocean is named after India, but it is not India's ocean. Indian Ocean is not only India's ocean. It is common for all of us, right? So, now, previous one. Now, Indian Ocean has 36 countries. We call them littorals. Littoral mean their shore. The beach area is washed by the Indian Ocean, 36, and then there are hinterland countries inside like Nepal, Bhutan. They are not part of the Indian Ocean littorals, but they are close to the Indian Ocean. Now, ladies and gentlemen, now we are living in the 21st century, right? In the 19th and the 20th centuries, Indian Ocean was not the major ocean. Although early part of 19th century, our region was very flourishing, we were doing business, we were doing trade, and then we became colonies. So we became colonies and they forgot about us. But the World War I and II, Industrial Revolution, free market economies, democratic movements, all these things happened where? In the Atlantic and in the Pacific. So Indian Ocean was not that important at that time. But that has changed in the 21st century. In the 21st century, Indian Ocean has become one of the most important oceans in the world. Now, if you look at the Indian Ocean, the uniqueness is that it connects 4 continents, right? Asia, Africa, Australia, and Antarctica, 4 continents, right? And also, Indian Ocean has a lot of things for us. We call it natural resources. World's largest oil and gas is in Persian Gulf. Middle Eastern countries, right? That's how they became so rich, because they have oil and gas, right? So a lot of strategic natural resources and strategic reserves are actually in the Indian Ocean. Now, in the beginning I mentioned that about international trade. I said 95% of internationally traded goods are carried by the ocean. What is the significance of the Indian Ocean? Are you familiar with the word containers? Container ships. The ships carrying those boxes, right? 50% of containers for world is carried across the Indian Ocean. Imagine, 50% of container business is going across the Indian Ocean. 72% or 75% of energy, when I say energy, it's basically oil and gas, is carried across the Indian Ocean. And nearly 35% of bulk cargo like iron ore, wheat, cement, gypsum are carried across the Indian Ocean. So 50% of world containers, 75% of world energy, 35% of bulk cargo is going across the Indian Ocean. That is why it is so important. That is why it is so important. Now, although Indian Ocean is the 3rd largest ocean, we divide it into 2. We say Western Indian Ocean, or we call it the Arabian Sea, and then we have the biggest bay in the world called the Bay of Bengal. Now, Bay of Bengal is important to you. Why? Number of ASEAN countries, Myanmar, Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore are in the Bay of Bengal. So Bay of Bengal is very important for you, Indonesia and ASEAN, right? Next. Now, if you look at the ocean, Indian Ocean, historically northern part is more important. Why? Because all the countries are there in the northern part. Southern part is what? Only the penguins, right? Southern part is Antarctica. It's not land, of course, there are a lot of resources, but northern part has been traditionally important. And also another important thing is, when you compare the oceans, Indian Ocean is a warm ocean. If you look at Arctic, it's so cold. Antarctic, cold. Part of Atlantic during winter is very cold. Part of Pacific during the winter is very cold. But Indian Ocean is always nice and warm, right? That's an advantage. We can live in the ocean any month of the year. And also, not only that, when we have warm ocean, we have what? A lot of plants, a lot of habitats, and a lot of fish, right? So this warmness in the ocean is very important as well. Now you mentioned about, when you talk about the ocean, you said Mediterranean. I said Mediterranean is not an ocean, but it's a sea. Similarly, Indian Ocean has, we call them marginal seas, right? Like Persian Gulf, where the world oil and gas is produced. Red Sea, right? And Malacca Strait. This is called a marginal sea. They are not exactly in the Indian Ocean. Another very important thing in the Indian Ocean is it is somewhat a closed ocean. And we say there are a number of choke points. What do you mean by choke? Right? If I want to kill myself, right, I have to choke myself, right? And a little boy or a girl eating too fast can choke. So similarly, Indian Ocean has number of choke points. Now, very important is Bab el-Mandeb between Yemen and Djibouti. And I'm sure you know what is happening there. Because of this Israel-Hamas issue, because of the Iran involvement in all these activities, Yemen Houthi rebels are firing at ships going through Bab el-Mandeb. It is a very narrow strait, right? Now, if that is disturbed, we have problem. And then another very important choke point is your neighbor, Malacca Strait, between Indonesia, Singapore and Malaysia, right? Very important. More than 1,000 ships pass every day. Malacca Strait is one of the busiest straits in the world and very narrow. Of course, there are two other straits across Indonesia. What are they? Sunda Strait and Lombok, right? These are the two straits across Indonesia, and that is critically important for entrance to South China Sea, like Sunda and Lombok, right? And also we have Suez Canal. If you want to go to your ocean, Mediterranean Sea, Suez Canal is another choke point. You know, about a year ago, one ship ran aground in the Suez Canal. For 1 week, nothing could move. So that is choke, right? Then if you go towards Africa, you have Mozambique Channel. But very important, in the northern part, large number of choke points. And only Indian Ocean is having that. If you look at Atlantic Ocean, it's open, right? It's quite open. If you look at Pacific Ocean, it's quite open. But Indian Ocean is somewhat closed ocean. Next. Now also, Indian Ocean has what we call flash points. What do you mean by flash points in international relation? It can explode. It can catch fire, right? And if you look at these flash points, Yemen, the Houthi, there is no government in Yemen, right? It is part, or the majority of Yemen is under so-called terrorist organization called Houthi rebels, Houthis, right? And Israel-Palestine, my God, we know this, right? Now more than 1 year, killing is still going on, and the fighting is now going beyond Israel, beyond Palestine. It has now gone to Lebanon, right? So that is terrible situation. Nearly 42,500 Palestinians have been killed, and even now bombing is going on. Then Iran, right? Nobody knows what Iran is doing, but Iran is behind Houthi rebels, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Palestine, Syria, Iraq, Iran is there, right? Then Somalia. Somalia is still ungoverned country. There is no proper government in Somalia, right? We remember a few years ago, like 10 years ago, Somali pirates became a big hit, right? Somali pirates became very powerful. Then of course Afghanistan, with the Taliban regime, we don't know exactly how Afghanistan is going to come up, but it is a flashpoint. Then India, Pakistan. So many of you, India is peaceful, right? But India, Pakistan is not peaceful. And then both of them are nuclear armed, right? Then of course Syria and Iraq. Still destabilized region. In your region, one country, Myanmar, only, right? So in that sense, your region is lucky, because the Western Indian Ocean has 7 flashpoints, and the Bay of Bengal has only one. So you are the lucky one. Next slide. Now, ladies and gentlemen, when you talk when you look at the history, how did Dutch colonize Indonesia and rule your country for more than 200, 300 years? How did that happen? They are not in the Indian Ocean, right? They are not in Malacca Strait. What did they use? Ships. They used power from the ocean. We were so stupid, right? We didn't protect ourselves. Not only you, India, such a big country with such a big population, was colonized by the British for nearly 500 years. Right? So, the importance of sea power. Now, sea power is critically important, and there was one gentleman called Admiral Mahan, right? American Admiral. He said, sea power is critically important. Whoever dominates the ocean will control the world. Hasn't it been true? How did Great Britain, colonize all of us? How did Dutch, Portuguese colonize all of us? How did Spanish, French colonize mainly African countries? By using sea power. So, is sea power important in the 21st century? Critically important. So, whoever dominates the ocean will control the world. Now, we all know America is the superpower we have, right? And now we have another superpower coming up very fast. Who is that? China. Now, China is known as the workshop of the world. That means they produce so many things. And I think many things available in Indonesia are actually produced in China, right? Now, how does China send these items to you? By sea. So, that is why China is very important. Also, ladies and gentlemen, the resources on land, is it increasing or decreasing? Going down. Resources on the land is going down. Population on the land is increasing. What does that mean? We will run out of resources very soon. Right? When the resources are decreasing, populations are increasing, we will run out of resources. However, we have a safety locker, ocean. Untapped. Ocean has everything. Right? So therefore, command of the ocean is not only for trade, but for exploitation of resources, very important. Okay, I'm spending a lot of time in the Indian Ocean. Yeah, these points I have mentioned already. Next. Now, I mentioned, or you said that the number one superpower in the world is America. But in the 21st century, it's changing, right? Now, China was not there 20 years ago. In economic terms, in military terms, China was not there. But now, China has risen very close to America in economics, in military. Still, technology-wise, America is superior. But China is gaining. I think most of our mobile phones are top ones are manufactured in China, right? Most of our tabs, everything is manufactured in China. So they have become a power, right? Now, during the World War II and the Cold War, there were two clear superpowers, right? One was America, other one was Russia or the USSR. But then 1991, the Cold War ended, Russia or USSR disintegrated. So since then, we only have one superpower. And therefore, when you are so powerful, you act like a policeman, right? You say, you behave well, otherwise I will pinch you. Next slide. So this unipolar world is changing. And Now, if you have been following news, there is a big summit taking place in Kazakhstan right now. And your new president, I think he's not going, but your new foreign minister has already gone to participate in the BRICS summit. Why did I mention BRICS summit? Because BRICS stand for what? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Now they are expanding. They are expanding to incorporate other powers. Now they are talking about an alternative currency to dollar. Now every business we do, still internationally, most of it is taking place in US dollar. Even Kanduru's pay is coming in US dollar, right? But it is gradually changing, right? So this dominance that America had is changing. But still America is still big. They are still powerful, they are still military. Now we need to understand this change because that China has risen. They are the number 2 economy in the world. They have the biggest military and they are a nuclear capable country. And they have what we call excess capacities and capabilities. What do you mean by capacities and capabilities? Jakarta, Bandung, Bush, who built it? It looks really great, right? It's amazing. You know, earlier we took 3 hours to go from Jakarta to Bandung, now 29 minutes. Who did it? China. So China has expertise. China has capacities, right? So they do things. They have capabilities. And China right now has the biggest high-speed train network in the world. Now every time I visit China quite often, every time I go there, I see a new high-speed line. And I see the speed is increasing. Earlier it was like 250, now then it went to 350, now it has gone to 450. So almost like a flight, right? Quite fast, right? So they are having their capacities and they want to be a modernized military by 2035, right? So China is one of the major powers in the Indian Ocean. I have another example to show you the changing world dynamics. There is this list called Global Fortune 500 list, right? China has 129 companies in that, in comparison to 121 companies of America. 20 years ago, China had only one. Now they have 129. And if you look at the international banks, all the top 4 banks are Chinese banks. Good old days, China had nothing there. So this is the changing dynamics that is important to all of us. Now, one day, somebody asked me a question. Can you describe the strategic situation in the Indian Ocean very briefly? I said I can do that in 12 words. Right? 12 words, exactly. What are these 12 words? Strategic competition. 2 words, right? Count, please. Strategic convergence, strategic confusion, strategic ambiguity, strategic chaos, and strategic dilemma. Exactly 12 words. This is Indian Ocean today. Strategic competition means what? America versus China, India versus China, America, India, Japan, EU, Australia versus China, right? This is the strategic competition. Then the strategic convergence, countries getting together. You have heard about Quad. You have heard about AUKUS. Quad is the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue. AUKUS is Australia, UK, US for submarine, nuclear submarine. Convergence. Some people or some countries get together to counter China. Then strategic confusion. For smaller countries like Sri Lanka, even Indonesia is confused, right? What do we do? What do we do really? And then it gives us an ambiguity. Right now, Indonesia has to balance everyone. Indonesia cannot say we are only with China. Indonesia cannot say we are only with America. They have to balance. So they are in an ambiguity. And this has led to a very chaotic situation in the Indian Ocean and dilemma. Dilemma means what do we do? Can we select one against the other? Answer is no. Can we hedge one against the other? Not very good to do that. So this is the situation. Also, I used another term to describe the Indian Ocean called RMB. If you are familiar with currency, your currency is IDR, right? And RMB is renminbi yuan, Chinese currency. But my RMB is resources, markets and bases. This is the fight in the Indian Ocean. This has ramification to maritime security. Next. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have briefly touched upon this slide also. I re-emphasize Indian Ocean maritime trade is very important, right? Now that is why America is maintaining a huge presence in the Indian Ocean. Of course, they have one big island called Diego Garcia. That is American island. But now, actually that island belonged to Mauritius. What did the UK do? They chased all the Mauritian people and gave it to America. But now there is a court ruling. After so many years, UK finally said, we are going to give this back to original people. But still, the big American base is there. So America is very big in the Indian Ocean. But not only America. China, Russia, France, Germany, every major power is now in the Indian Ocean. Actually, if you remember like 2009, 2012, there was piracy, Somalian piracy. And one navy couldn't handle it. And the United Nations said, everyone come and protect the shipping. So everybody came. Now piracy is not there, but they are there. The navies are not leaving, they are there. So this is the situation in the Indian Ocean. Now I have a word on top, SLOCs, S-L-O-C-S, that means sea lines of communication. That is not talking communication, but shipping. Sea lines of communication. Next. Now, I am coming to the maritime security dimension, because I explained to you the geostrategic, geopolitical situation in the Indian Ocean, why it is so important. When you look at maritime security, we have to understand first the threat, right? We need to understand, when you talk about security, you have to understand the threat. Number one threat in the Indian Ocean is the major power competition. Nuclear armed countries trying to fight in our area. You know, when the big people fight, what happened to the smaller guys like us? We get crushed. So this is, of course, there is no immediate threat of a major power competition, major war breaking out there right now. But the heat is on. Heat is on, right? So whether these countries fight and whether they will use a nuclear warhead, nuclear weapon, we all will die. There are so many nuclear weapons in the world today, right? And if somebody decide to use a nuclear weapon, it will be the end of the humankind, right? Then the third problem we have, spillover effect of conflict on land. Can I give you an example? Now Israel-Hamas conflict. Has it got anything to do with Indian Ocean? No, it is not in the Indian Ocean, it is in the Mediterranean. But because of that conflict, Houthi rebels are firing at ships. So that is the spillover from that conflict, still there. So ungoverned and failed state, now Myanmar. It's not governed properly, right? There is no effective government. Part of it is under one rebel organization, part of it is under another rebel organization. Only the main city is under the Myanmar army. It's ungoverned. Somalia, ungoverned. Yemen, ungoverned. So it's a problem. So, choke points I mentioned in the beginning, and if somebody decide to block a choke point, the trade will collapse. Next. Now, unlike Atlantic and the Pacific Ocean, Indian Ocean has another major threat. We call it the non-traditional threat. Why? The traditional threats are coming from the military, who are having big weapons. Non-traditional threats mean coming from the non-state actor. We call them non-state actor. Any example? Pirates, maritime terrorism, smuggling of narcotic drugs, human smuggling. All these are not done by governments, right? These are done by non-state actors. This is a major problem in the Indian Ocean, and it has impact on trade. Next. Piracy. I don't think I need to talk about piracy. I think you all know what happened in Somali pirates. They started hijacking ships. I will release the ship, give me $5 million. For them, ship and the crew was very important, not the cargo. They didn't care about the cargo. They wanted the ship and the crew. Is there piracy in this region, Malacca Strait? Yes, there is, right? But here, the pirates are not interested in ransom money. They are interested in cargo. They hijack a ship, take the cargo and leave the ship and go. It is happening here. So there are three major piracy infested areas in the world. One is the Gulf of Aden or Indian Ocean, Western Indian Ocean. Other one is Malacca, this region, but I think it's going down now. Other one is Gulf of Guinea, that is east of Nigeria. These are the three, right? Now the problem of piracy is they are not alone. Sometimes they are linked with maritime crime, other terrorism, human smuggling, narcotic smuggling. These are all linked, right? And some terrorist groups are engaging in piracy in order to earn money to fight wars. That is the problem. Next. Now, Ali also mentioned about terrorism, right? Indian Ocean has seen very bad terrorist incidents in the past. One major ship called USS Cole was attacked in Port of Aden. Another huge oil tanker called MT Lindbergh was attacked by Yemen or Al-Qaeda terrorists of Yemen. Here in your region, in Philippine Sea, a ship called Super Ferry 14 was destroyed by maritime terrorists. Mumbai attack, right? Mumbai attack, maritime terrorism. So there were many terrorism. Right now, we see the maritime terrorism coming up again, especially in the Western Indian Ocean or Arabian Sea by the Houthi rebels. They keep attacking ships. The two photos on the screen, the left one is the American destroyer USS Cole attack in year 2000. The next one, the big smoke, is the MT Lindbergh attack in 2002. And the third one is how the Houthi rebels hijack a ship. They went in a helicopter, landed on the deck and took over the ship. These are all related to maritime terrorism. So it's happening in the world. Now, one of the worst case scenarios of maritime terrorism is, you remember the September 11th attack against New York, You remember, Twin Tower, World Trade Center. Did the terrorists use any explosives or weapons? No, they didn't use anything. What did they use? Aircraft, full of passengers, full of fuel. They used that to ram and destroy the World Trade Center, attack on Pentagon, right? Now the fear is, in maritime terrorism, what if a terrorist group hijack a ship and carry a weapon of mass destruction like nuclear weapon, chemical weapon, biological weapon, and explode in a port? Entire port will be gone. So this is actually, right now, we are discussing about the possibility of this, but what you need is international response to any event like that. Next. So another major threat that we have, even in the even in the Bay of Bengal, is irregular migration by sea. In simple words, human smuggling. Now the top picture is actually Mediterranean, across the Mediterranean going to Italy, human smuggling. And the bottom picture you can see in Aceh, Rohingya refugees coming from Myanmar and Bangladesh to Aceh. Initially they were welcome, right? Initially, because they are also Muslims, so you had sympathy to them, but then it became a problem, and then now people in Aceh don't like them, right? And there was one instance where some university students, remember, went and attacked them. Go away, chase them, go away, and then put them on a boat. Now I think Indonesian government is trying to handle this situation, because you can't keep on accepting large number of Rohingyas. Unfortunately, Rohingyas are stateless people. Myanmar say you don't belong to us. Bangladesh say you don't belong to us. Right? So it's very difficult situation for them. So this is happening in your region and in the world, irregular migration by sea. Next. Then another huge problem is narcotics, illegal drugs. You know, what are the two drug producing regions or rather three drug producing regions in the world? One is Afghanistan. It's called the Golden Opium, Golden Crescent. Other one is in your neighborhood, called the Golden Triangle, Laos, Cambodia and Vietnam. Right? Other one is Colombia, that is basically heroin. Right? So there are three drug producing regions in the world, and in the Indian Ocean we are between two, Afghanistan, and because the drugs produced in these countries, they have to take somewhere, and they cannot take everything by air. Only small quantities can be taken by air, so they use the ocean. So the narcotic trade and also weapon trade, illegal weapon trade. If you have money, you can buy anything in the world, right? You can buy a gun, right? And human smuggling, weapon smuggling and narcotic smuggling is taking place. Next. Now another major threat in the Indian Ocean is illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing. That is illegal fishing basically, right? This is a huge threat in the Indian Ocean. They say nearly 40% of the fish caught in the Indian Ocean is illegal. We are all culprits. We are all bad, right? Because the fishermen don't respect rules. They just go where the fish is. They go to other countries' exclusive economic zone and catch the fish and come back. And they don't say where they caught it. They don't declare, unreported. Right? And some fishermen actually use destructive fishing methods, like bottom trawling. You scrape the bottom, destroy all the corals and take the fish. Dynamite fishing. You drop dynamite, boom, all the fish is dead, then you go and collect the fish. And chemicals, You spray chemicals to the ocean and the fish die. So this is a major security threat in the Indian Ocean called IUU fishing. And a silent enemy for maritime security in the Indian Ocean is global warming and the climate change and the sea level rising. If the ocean level rise by 1 meter, what will happen to Indonesia? Half of Indonesia will be gone, because you have 17,000 islands, right? From Aceh to Papua. 17, and then to East Timor-Leste. Then to East Timor. You have 17,000 small islands. These islands are not very big, right? And they are in the ocean. So if the ocean level rise by 1 meter, entire Maldives will be gone. Half of Sri Lanka will be gone. Half of Indonesia will be gone. So this is very important. We have to take care of the ocean, because ocean gives us oxygen. Ocean absorbs carbon dioxide. Ocean is the biggest air conditioner in the world. Why? It absorbs nearly 90% of the heat coming from the sun. And ocean regulates our climate. And the more we damage the ocean, more we damage our environment, more we damage our climate. So how is this going to be linked to maritime security? One thing is the human, right? Human will lose their habitats and there will be wars. You know, whatever the country left, little land left, there will be wars. People will fight for it. And large-scale displacement. And the news is not very promising, right? 2023 was the hottest year on earth. And 2024 is going to be worse. So we better do something quickly. Next. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I think I spoke about the Indian Ocean, then I spoke about the maritime security threats. Now, what are the things happening, or rather initiatives in the Indian Ocean? One is the Belt and Road Initiative. Is it important to Indonesia? It is, because the Wush is actually part of the Belt and Road Initiative. High-speed train from Jakarta to Bandung is part of the Belt and Road Initiative. And Sri Lanka has many links to Belt and Road Initiative. It is a China-led. Altogether 69 countries are members of Belt and Road Initiative. And there is another initiative called China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. They are building a railroad, pipeline between China and the Indian Ocean across Pakistan. It's called China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. India has a project called Sagar. Sagar means security and growth for region. Security and growth for region. They say because India want to be the major player in the Indian Ocean. Then of course we have free and open Indo-Pacific strategy of Japan. The USA has Indo-Pacific strategy. What is ASEAN have? ASEAN has what is called ASEAN Outlook on Indo-Pacific strategy. ASEAN Outlook on Indo-Pacific strategy. So these are some of the initiatives taking place in the Indian Ocean. And also we have some strategic convergence. Quad is one. Quad is what? 4. Quad means 4, right? And who are the Quad members? Australia, Japan, America, and India. These are the 4 Quad members. Now this is like, some people call it a mini NATO in the Indian and the Pacific Oceans. Right? But India said, no, it is not a NATO. We are just an alliance. We are just a grouping. And we don't want to harm anyone. It is not to counter China, but it is to counter China, right? They don't say that. Right? They say, no, we want to help the countries. So Quad is there. Then also we have, next slide, AUKUS. Now AUKUS mean Australia, UK and US. Now these three big guys, the funny thing is Australia is not in the West, right? Australia is here, our neighbor, but they behave like a Western country because they speak English. And King is their boss, right? King Charles is their boss. So they think they are British. They were British earlier. So Australia behave like a Western country. Of course, they speak English. They have Western culture. They have Western habits. Everything is very much Western there. And large number of Indonesian students are studying in Australia, right? My daughter is there, and her 4 neighbors are all Indonesian. Right? So I learn few words when I visit them, like apa kabarmu and bike. I learn from the Indonesian students in Australia. So AUKUS is a new kid in the block. America wants to give Australia the nuclear power submarine. They say not nuclear weapons, but nuclear power or nuclear power submarine technology. And UK said, okay, we have expertise, because these two countries, America and UK, they have nuclear submarines. They have developed nuclear submarine expertise for a long time, and now they want Australia to be part of it. And that again is basically to counter China. Right? But the danger is, our region is going to be nuclearized. That is why ASEAN say, ASEAN region should be a no nuclear zone, non-nuclear zone. Don't bring any nuclear weapons here. Next. So Indian Ocean is heavily militarized. A lot of ships. At any given time, 100 to 120 warships are in the Indian Ocean, and we don't know how many submarines are there, because submarines don't tell us where they are, right? Ships we can see, but submarines we cannot see, and we don't know how many nuclear submarines are there, right? If you take the Sri Lanka is in the center of Indian Ocean. Many warships come to Sri Lanka just to have little fun, take some water, provisions, have some parties and go to the next destination. And we have had 662 warships visiting Sri Lanka from 2009 until now. This is a very large number. That is one indication how many warships are there in the Indian Ocean. This is why I took that example. And also we have another problem, Indo-Pakistan problem. So I say right now, Indian Ocean is having a cool war, not a cold war like what happened in Europe, in Atlantic. Now we have a cool war. Now our responsibility is not to allow that to be cold, right? Because cool war is also dangerous, but still okay. But if it become a cold war, again everybody will start making weapons because they are getting ready for a war, right? So this is why we call it, there is a cool war, right? Now what do we want in the Indian Ocean? We don't want to fight. We want to live in peace. We want to resolve our issues amicably. But now China and Philippines is having a major problem. China and Vietnam is having a problem. China and Malaysia is having a problem. China and Indonesia generally okay, but still there is a problem, right? So we would like to resolve these issues according to the law, by discussion, not by war. We don't want war, right? So we have to develop confidence between our countries. We don't have it, right? So we need some kind of regional maritime security architecture, right? Because we have already in the Indian Ocean, we have IORA, Indian Ocean Rim Association. We have IONS, Indian Ocean Naval Symposium. Then we have BIMSTEC, all dealing with maritime security. In ASEAN, you have ASEAN Outlook on Indo-Pacific Strategy. You have ASEAN Maritime Outlook. and then you are dealing with security in this region. Now what we need is to work together, because we have to work with ASEAN. Because as I mentioned, Indian Ocean, the eastern edge is Indonesia. Right? So we have to work together. But then what are the challenges? Why can't we work together? Right? Because not of course Sri Lanka and Indonesia, but with India we have many countries have problems. We don't trust India, we don't trust China, we don't trust USA, we don't trust their intentions. So we have a huge issue with the trust. Right? And also many countries in the Indian Ocean do not have capacities and capabilities. We don't have the technology, we don't have the money. We are all developing countries. Indonesia is better in that way, but many countries in the Indian Ocean are not there yet. So we have lack of capacities and capabilities. And another major problem in our part of the world, many of our leaders don't know the ocean. They don't understand the sea. Right? We are not maritime. We are not maritime nation. We call it sea blindness, because they don't know what is happening in the ocean. Right? So also when you are dealing with ocean, it is multi-sectoral. There are many areas, not only warships. There are research vessels, there are survey vessels, right? So it's multidisciplinary, science, mathematics, computers, blue technology, many areas of focus. So in conclusion, I would say Indian Ocean need peace and stability. We don't want a single power to rule us, not US, not China, not India. We don't want that in the Indian Ocean. And also we know one country cannot handle everything together. We have seen it now time and again. The best way is for us to work together, and for that we need political leadership to work together, right? And we need collaborative security, comprehensive security, and sustainable security in the Indian Ocean. And like Indonesia, even your President Prabowo mentioned in his opening remark in the parliament, Indonesia will not join any bloc. Indonesia will remain neutral but active in international relations. So neutral and active. Actually even he mentioned the word non-aligned, but non-aligned is, we can debate. But I think right now neutral and active foreign policy is the motto of Indonesia, and it is the motto of many countries. We want that. We don't want to be aligned with one. We want to be neutral and active. Now we want the balanced power, not one power. We don't want China to be the major power in the Indian Ocean. We don't want America. Right now they are, but we don't want only them to be the major power, because if that is the case, we have to choose, and we don't want to choose. We want to work with everyone. We want to benefit with everyone. We want to trade with everyone. Right? So this is what many countries in the Indian Ocean would like to have. So this brings the conclusion to my talk. I covered the geography, geostrategic nature of the Indian Ocean, maritime security threats in the Indian Ocean, and then finally the arrangements that we have in the Indian Ocean to enhance maritime security. So finally I can say we have to work together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. I think that what strikes me the most, the impression that I get from your lecture is that Indonesia and Sri Lanka had very much alignment in terms of its security perception or threat perception to maritime security, because what I have learned before is that because Indonesia and Sri Lanka had geographical characteristics that are so different. We are archipelagic in your island country, but the security perception or threat perception to maritime security is very aligned. If I could compare Indonesia with, for example, Singapore. Singapore don't really care about non-traditional security, and they care a lot about geopolitical rivalry and building a naval power. But Indonesia cares a lot about non-traditional security like piracy, terrorism that you have mentioned. But also Sri Lanka actually have a lot of concern about that, so pays a lot of attention to non-traditional security as well. Perhaps what's different is that in the Indian Ocean there are no territorial disputes. In South China Sea, territorial dispute is just plenty. Territorial dispute, and it's politicizing the relationship. And then you also finally mentioned IORA. That's one mechanism for multilateral. That's a multilateral cooperation on maritime security, and I think it is important that we discuss that because it is such a high time to promote multilateralism in the age of declining effectiveness of multilateralism and the rising presence of minilateralism, Quad, for example, AUKUS, and both Sri Lanka and Indonesia. We have to navigate the increasing tension of geopolitical rivalry. Sri Lanka is, of course, the current leader of IORA, so it is interesting to look at what IORA has done for maritime capacity building, so on and so forth. All right, then I would like to open the floor for question and arguments. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, 5. Yeah, we have 4 here and 1 here, and 6. Yes. Okay, so can we pass around the microphone, please?
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Reza. I'm from the third year from 2022. And my question is perhaps more closer to home for you because it's about Sri Lanka. As we know, there is a port in Sri Lanka, Hambantota port, that is being leased to China for 100 years, if I'm not mistaken. So my question is, what are the chances that this port will be repurposed by China for military purposes? And if they do end up do that, what would the implications be for the balance of power in Indian Ocean? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for the okay. So,
I'm the last one.
Thank you, Ambassador Jayanath, for the insightful presentation. My name is Olivia, and I would like to ask for your opinion. So you've mentioned how there there is a huge distrust between nations, and then there is the threat of militarization and nuclearization, intensification. And here I would like to ask regarding, how do you examine the importance of bottom-up approach in ensuring maritime security, and especially within the Indian Ocean? How do you view the importance of indigenous people roles in contributing and partaking in their role within this matter? Thank you very much.
Indigenous people.
Yes, indigenous people.
Indigenous people
Well, in the Indian Ocean, there's a lot of islands, right? And then there's also the local people there who knows the current issue that they face in practice. So how do you view their roles in contributing to the maritime security, maybe in terms of the research and development aspect? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Gracia and I'm from batch 2022. I'd like to ask a question. So, are there any negotiation or diplomacy initiatives taken by Sri Lanka to address threats in the Indian Ocean? For example, the threat of spillover effect on conflict between Israel and Palestine. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Jeremy Mikael, and I'm also from the same batch as...
No, let me, I think, first answer the three questions. Otherwise, it become... Yeah, thank you. Sorry about it. Okay, so I have three questions. The first question is about Port of Hambantota. This has become a huge strategic concern in Sri Lanka and for India and for America, because it was built by China, right? And it is now operated by China, called the China Merchant Port Holding. There were many reasons why it was given to China for 99-year lease. Many. I don't want to go that way because we are to be blamed for that. Sri Lanka, we shouldn't have given. We should not have given a key strategic asset like the port of Hambantota to China for a long period of 99 years. Why? Because India is so concerned about it. So we can't be a strategic security concern to India, because we are the neighborhood, right? So similarly, if you take ASEAN, you have to work together. And Indonesia should be mindful of your neighbors. You can't say, I don't care about you, I do whatever. No, you can't. So similarly, it is technically wrong to give that to 99-year lease. But then your question is not really about that, right? Your question is, can China use this as a military port, military harbor? The answer is yes and no. Why I say? Well, if they use this for military purposes, that means what? War. If China want to use port of Hambantota for military purposes, against whom? India. That means it is like declaring war. So I don't think China in the foreseeable future will want to do that. Why? Because China want to be rich, right? When you are having a very good business, you don't want to disturb the neighborhood. You want to make money, right? So it is very unlikely China would want to use port of Hambantota as a military port. Unlikely. And Sri Lanka will also not allow that. Sri Lanka will not allow China to use Hambantota as a military port, right? Because we don't want to disturb India. Simply. Now Sri Lanka is working very hard to separate military from commerce, business. We want China, we want to do business with China, make money, become rich, become a developed country. And we don't want to antagonize India. We are trying to differentiate between security and trade. As far as Sri Lanka is concerned, Hambantota is a trading port. Let that be only for trade, because Hambantota is, if you look at geographically, it is in the southern part of Sri Lanka, which is closer to the busiest shipping lane across the Indian Ocean. Per day, nearly 300 ships pass that area. We need that trade. We need that trade to continue. So we don't want China to come in. Another point that I have to mention is the security of that port is handled by the Sri Lanka Navy. So without telling the Navy, without getting permission from the Navy, no ship can come. So therefore, this is how we manage the situation. We have done a blunder by giving it 99. Now we say we have implemented these measures so that it cannot be and it will not be used as a military post. Question number 2. I think the second question is a very different one. Is talking about indigenous people. How can we use them? Because these people know the ocean, right? Because they have been living in the ocean, living on the ocean, living off the ocean for centuries. I think the best way we can use them is to get their expertise, get their knowledge, how to protect the ocean. Because I mentioned to you, if we don't protect the ocean, it will have huge implications on maritime security. So these indigenous people, some are good, some are not very good. Some can be engaged in illegal activities. So that is a problem. If they are engaged in illegal activities, that's a problem. But I think we can use their knowledge to preserve the maritime environment. I think that is the best we can use, because they know the ocean, right? Then third question is, you ask about, what are we doing Sri Lanka? Sri Lanka has a maritime dialogue called GAL dialogue. Every year we meet, now of course every 2 years. We invite all the maritime security experts across the world. And fortunately, Sri Lanka is one country. Chinese can come, Indians can come, Pakistanis can come. Indians will not go to Pakistan. Pakistanis will not go to India. Chinese scholars may not go all the way to India. They will go to Pakistan. But Sri Lanka, everybody come. Right? So we have that advantage. We call it the GAL dialogue, GAL Maritime Security Dialogue. And that is basically bringing all the maritime security practitioners, experts to discuss about maritime security threats in the Indian Ocean and to find recommendations to the government. So that is one initiative we have. Then, as Pali said, we are the chair of IORA, Indian Ocean Rim Association. So we are trying to develop collaborative mechanism. Then another thing is, Sri Lanka has another initiative called Colombo Security Conclave, that is between Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Maldives, now Bangladesh, Seychelles. We are discussing about maritime security. And also our embassy here, we have started a maritime dialogue with the Indonesian government, because as Pa Ali mentioned, our threats are very common, right? And we are neighbors, maritime neighbors. When you look east of Sri Lanka, we don't see any country. First we see Aceh, Banda Aceh, that is that is across the ocean. Towards east, it is Indonesia, so we are maritime neighbor. So we need to work more closely. Now IORA is trying to work closely with ASEAN to provide enhanced maritime security. And we also play a key role in the organization called BIMSTEC. Now BIMSTEC, not everybody knows that BIMSTEC is now really focusing on maritime security. Earlier, BIMSTEC is Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Economic Cooperation. India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, Thailand, Bhutan, they are the members of BIMSTEC. And I have recommended that Indonesia should be part of BIMSTEC because you are in the Bay of Bengal, right? So these are some of the initiatives that Sri Lanka has taken to discuss maritime security and to come out with policy recommendations. We can only recommend. Right, we can only recommend because we are a small player. There are much bigger players. So they have to listen to us. They have to acknowledge us. Thank you.
It's very important for countries, developing countries, dealing with those threats and try to compartmentalize the trade and security.
Exactly.
Because otherwise it's going to be explained. Yeah, it's very. I think. I'm sorry, but I think
Ibu Nurul said she will be the fifth one. Yeah, because he
Thank you for the opportunity. His Excellency, my name is Jeremy Mikael. I am also from the same batch as the previous questioner, so I have two questions. So probably my first question will dive a bit into your diplomatic career. So I want to ask whether your choice of posting in Indonesia was your choice or was it the president's choice? Yeah, because I'm interested because as I see in the diplomatic career, sometimes there are countries that are considered strategic and non-strategic, and sometimes there are diplomats who are half-hearted to be assigned to this country. So I just want to ask more about your diplomatic career, because previously, as I see in your CV, you have quite high posting in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as the secretary, and I just wanted to confirm regarding your posting in Indonesia. So my second question is probably similar to the third question, but regarding more of the technical part regarding the Navy's involvement in the Indian Ocean. So as you previously mentioned, the Indian Ocean is a hotbed of conflict. As you mentioned, there are about hundreds of ships currently operating in the ocean at any given time, plus the unseen submarines and number of militia ships such as the Chinese who own water cannon ships and like that. So I just want to ask, probably I don't know the status of the Sri Lanka's Navy, but are there any plans, technical, not cooperation, are there any technical plans to develop the Sri Lanka's Navy to face these new challenges in the future? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador, for the opportunity. My name is Bianca. Actually, I'm not from Pak Ali's class. I'm from Bu Nurul's class, which is competency for interactive diplomacy. So my question will be, you mentioned in your conclusion that we don't need a single hegemonic power, right? And you've mentioned from Gratia's question that Sri Lanka has initiatives to bring maritime securities and threats and issues to light. May I ask from your perspective, has the initiatives that has been taken, whether it's from Sri Lanka or from other nations such as maybe ASEAN or other major powers, how impactful has it been to bring maritime securities or threats or maybe issues to light? Do you think that it definitely could be improved, but how far are we on that progress? Thank you.
Good question. Now Ibu Nurul, your turn.
Student first, if there's still some question perhaps. Tadi sebelah sini. Sebelah sana belum ada ya? Belum ada. Oke. Okay, just to save the time lah, I have just a simple questions. I think, well, actually, my questions are quite similar with the others. But firstly, I would like to give maybe minor corrections on the terms of the principle of neutral and active Indonesian foreign policy. I think the word of, or the term of neutral should be independent. Instead of neutral, I think the right term is independent, because there is a different nuance of understanding between these two terms. I just refer to the original article written by Muhammad Hatta, the founding fathers, that I think firstly stated about or proposed about this principle of Indonesian foreign policy. Well, the second question is taking into account several challenges that have been identified based on your presentations. I've been thinking of the importance and the significance of the, let's say, leadership model to really take care of this IORA dynamics. What I mean is, you said that we don't need a single hegemony power to deal with these challenges, but I think also the model of apa ya namanya, bergiliran, keketuaan bergiliran itu gimana bahasa Inggrisnya? Rotation, the leadership model of rotation. I'm not quite sure whether it is also effective to manage this, let's say, multilateral forum with so huge challenges, not just from the military perspective, but also from non-traditional perspective. So I don't know whether Sri Lanka chairmanship have propose something regarding to this key issue in managing multilateral cooperation. Yeah, or perhaps we should take into account the model of global governance that really based on the shared norms and framework of regulations that can bind together all the parties involved in this multilateral forum. So the last questions, I think, because you are also the professor, Mr. Ambassador, perhaps you have some kinds of suggestions or ideas to what extent higher educations or academic communities, or let's say epistemic communities can take a part in the, let's say, in the dynamics of IRA to be really effective in achieving its main objective. I think that's all. Thank you very much for your lecture and also your answers.
Thank you, ma'am. Right, so let me answer the questions. You know, I am not a career diplomat. I have been a naval officer for 36 years. And then I became an academic. And not like Ali and Ibu, I started my PhD at the age of 55. Right? I started my PhD at the age of 55, on the verge of my retirement. Why? Because I wanted to have another career. Right? Not very common, right? People do PhDs when they're like 30s, maybe 40s, but right? So I had a 36 years naval career, retired, didn't have a job, so I became a few things I did, and I became an academic. Right? I started lecturing everywhere. I had a very good life because I was traveling a lot. And then 2019, the then president of Sri Lanka said, okay, you have to come and work for me. I said, Yes, sir. When the president say, you can't say no, right? So then he made me the foreign secretary. Of course, I had experiences in academics, naval career, so that combined together, I became the foreign secretary. And I did that job for 2 years, and then I retired from that. And then President offered me to go as a diplomat. So at that time, there were 5 vacancies. Right? Now you ask the question why I selected Indonesia. I didn't know anything about Indonesia, really. I mean, of course I knew. There were 5 countries vacant: Indonesia, Vietnam, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Jordan, I think, some Middle Eastern country. Then I was thinking where to go. I was thinking Nepal is not very good for me. Bangladesh is little trouble. Then Vietnam sounds good because promising, developing economy, right? Then I started reading, and I found Indonesia is the most important country in this part of the world. Right? So I thought, okay, then I asked a very senior foreign secretary, sir, I have a choice of 5 countries. I'm contemplating Vietnam. No, Jayanath, go to Indonesia. I said, okay, good suggestion. So it was, yeah, because I couldn't decide myself. And I'm so happy I came to Indonesia because I learned a lot about Indonesia. I learned a lot about your geography, your culture, your cuisine, your culinary, and I have traveled quite a lot to Kalimantan, Sumatra, Labuan Bajo, Bali, many places, so I'm very happy. And I have great friends in Indonesia now, and I have been a lecturer in many universities like Jayabaya, Budiluhur, Pertamina, Atmajaya, August 17, President University, Taskia University, Muhammadiyah, many, quite a few. And today evening I am going to Prasetya Mulya University, today evening, right? So I am very happy because I am interacting with the academia, right? Because it is great to listen to others, not only your view, other country view, other perception, and from students, the questions that you ask, I'm learning, right? So I do enjoy this, right? I do enjoy doing this, and I'm very happy I came to Indonesia. Indonesia is the best place for me, and I'm so great I did choose Indonesia. And it is the most promising country to my, if you take ASEAN, you have 10 members, right? Everybody will say they are important, but I know Indonesia is the most important country in ASEAN, right? And you have a huge potential. You have 280 million people, 17,000 islands, 5,000 kilometers of land, huge exclusive economic zone. Potential is great. And I wish that Indonesia Maju 2045, you will be a developed country. Right? And I do study your system, like I ask a lot of questions from Khan Hurul and my team, what is happening, the thinking of Indonesian youth. I'm trying to understand how the youth feel about democracy, how the youth feel about so-called dynastic politics. Right? I'm trying to understand, and I give my opinion to Nurul, not to the parliament. I say, that Nurul. So, I'm very happy I came here. But the second part of your question is, you know, maritime security is very complicated, and it is further complicated by what we call grey zone operations, like militia you mentioned, grey zone operation. But fortunately, these grey zone operations are more in South China Sea than in the Indian Ocean, right? So therefore, we don't worry too much about so-called militia in the Indian Ocean, but what we have is non-state actor threat. is very much prevalent in the Indian Ocean. Not much this gray zone. Gray zone is here in Maritime Malaysia, in the South China Sea. There are a lot of issues. So we are really worried. But then you ask about technical cooperation. Now there is one place where we cooperate for countering piracy is the RECAP in Singapore. Right, that's an association. We are also member of it, and we play a critical role in that to keep this region away from pirates. So far, it has produced good result, but technical cooperation is very limited in this region. We have this habit, even you I have observed, we think more about others away from us, like we focus America, European Union, China, and forgetting our own neighborhood. So that's not very good. We need more collaborative effort. So then the next question was, I keep saying we don't want a single hegemonic power. Then what? What do we do? Of course, we have IORA. Now we are chair of Indian Ocean Rim Association, and we are developing a concept to work more closely with ASEAN. And ASEAN has what is called ASEAN Outlook on Indo-Pacific, but then you have gone beyond that and you have now ASEAN Maritime Outlook, AMO. Now ASEAN Maritime Outlook talks about the need to work collaboratively with IORA, IONS and BIMSTEC. Three key organizations in the Indian Ocean. Now we have to walk the talk. We have to make it happen. So Sri Lanka is trying our level best to develop a dialogue with ASEAN. Now in addition to that, you have ASEAN Regional Forum. Now ARF is talking about everything, of course, trade, economics, environment and maritime security. So whether something can meaningfully come out of that. Then you also have another forum called AIS, Archipelago and Island State Forum. Indonesia is playing a key role in that. The last summit was held in Fiji. Now Sri Lanka is a member because we are an island nation. And you are the biggest archipelago in the world. So Archipelagic and Island State Forum is another forum. There are many forums, but the progress is the problem. Right? Many forums. Progress is the problem. And then if I share with you one example, the COP 28, 29, that is to environment, right? So we have had 28 COPs. Now the next one is going to be in Azerbaijan, COP 29. Despite 28 COPs, 2023 became the hottest year on earth. Have we achieved results? Big question, right? Big question. We talk, we know the problem, we talk about the solution, but we don't walk the talk. Right? Kyoto Protocol, developed countries promise 100 billion will be given to developing countries to protect the environment. They haven't. They haven't given, right? We have many commitments to environment, but we have a problem. We don't have funding. We don't have funding to get renewable energy. We don't have enough funding to go for electrical cars. That's why we keep burning fossil fuel and destroying our environment. We need to run the cars, we need to run the industry, and we have to unfortunately burn fossil fuel. And we keep destroying the environment. It is bad for us also. So developed countries have a more responsibility to support us so that we will contribute to protecting the environment. Right? So this is one example I gave you. 28 COPs, 2023 was the hottest year on earth. Right? Our target was to keep the temperatures within 1.5 degrees centigrade from the pre-industry level. And last year it went beyond 1.5. So this bad news, we have not done the right thing. The international system is good for talk. Right? We sometimes say NATO. No action, talk only. NATO, right? We are very good at talking. And these meetings, many countries use it to showcase, we are a great country, we can conduct a major international event. and many leaders participate, and their staff is writing a speech, they just read the speech and go. Right? I have seen it, don't blame me, I'm not pointing a finger at any particular country. This is the international system. Right? So we talk big, but when it comes to action, we have a problem. Now recently, Indonesia launched another program called the Global Blended Financial Alliance. That is to raise money to protect the environment, protect the ocean basically. Not many takers yet. Not many takers yet. And Sri Lanka initially said we will be part of it, but then we have a change of government, so we are now having the internal process. Indonesia has taken that initiative. But no, because the priorities are different. For America, priority is not to protect the environment. They have damaged the environment big time by burning all the fuel, burning all the coal. They have damaged. Now they don't care. But for our countries, we have to care. So the problem in the international system is we talk, we do know that we have to do something, but we don't. Now similarly, there are other initiatives coming up, but then I will answer that in Ibu Nurul's question. Thank you, ma'am. Actually, you brought a very important point saying Indonesia has an independent and active foreign policy. I think I was wrong when not so wrong, but when I said neutral and active may not be the best word, but independent and active foreign policy is the best way to explain Indonesia's foreign policy and Sri Lanka's foreign policy. We want to maintain our own independence, our own sovereignty, our own sovereign thoughts in matters, and active. Right now, I think you understand the difference. Independent means you can make decisions by yourself. Right? Now, active means when there is an issue, you don't hesitate to talk about it. One example is Israel-Hamas issue. Indonesia is very firm in support of Palestine people. Indonesia is very firm on two-state solution. Indonesia is very firm on stop the war, right? But in Ukraine-Russian conflict, you don't interfere too much. Why? It's not really, it is important to the whole world, but you don't condemn Russia too much, right? You don't say Ukraine should become NATO, no. Because you keep away, you keep independent, but in the Israel-Hamas issue, you are very active. So, thank you ma'am, independent and active foreign policy is the key to go. Thank you for educating me. This is what I said I learned. When I come to events like this, I also learn. Then you ask a very important question. I think I answered part of it in the answer to your question, why it is not happening. Now we have international system, we have multilateral system, we have unilateral system, we have bilateral system. Sometimes bilaterals work because it is a problem common for two. Bilateral, and we work better. Sometimes unilaterals work, right? But international system take time to react, right? International system take a very long time to react to situation because they need consensus, and consensus is rare. Even ASEAN has that problem because for you to do something, you need consensus. But 10 countries not on the same page. Right? So this is a huge problem. And then I think you mentioned about leadership. You know, many of our leaders are too focused on our country. Many of our leaders are focused on our country. Why? The issues they have to handle, right? They are not really focused beyond their country. Many. Right? But we have to. I will give you one example of what Ibu Nurul said. In 1955, 5 countries got together and created what is called the Bandung Conference. Right? What are the 5 countries? Indonesia, India, Myanmar, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. So 1950s, we thought about others. Right? We 5 countries got together. First meeting was held in Colombage, Sri Lanka. Second meeting in Bogor. Third meeting in Bandung. Now when you go to the city of Bandung, there is a globe, the world map, and on top there are 5 names, and Sri Lanka is on the top 5, and then 29 other countries. Now why I brought this up to showcase what Ibu Nurul said, the leadership. Now we thought of beyond our countries at that time, and Bandung Conference actually gave rise to non-aligned movement in Belgrade in 1961. Non-alignment movement was created by Bandung Conference. And when we went to the Bandung Conference, we were independent, but many states in Africa were not. And they got the idea, we have to be independent also. So this Bandung Conference was a game changer. And our leaders at that time thought much beyond their country. But right now we have too many problems within our country, so our focus is mostly to us. Right? So I wish that our leaders can think beyond our own territory and look at what is the global common, or what is good for the global common. And then Madam mentioned the word shared norms. We have our norms, you have your norm, but when we come to shared norms, we say, oh, no, that is not my interest. So that is the major problem we have. So this political leadership is something we need for the world. We cannot depend on the United Nations alone. Of course, United Nations we need, right? It is working. In some areas it is working. Now United Nations has SDG 2030, right? Do you think that the 17 goals will be achieved? No. Right? And somebody told me, if you take the overall progress, it's only 16%. Only 16% progress on overall 17, 16, 1-6, alleviate poverty. We are poor. Right? Protect the ocean, SDG 14, life below ocean. We keep dumping plastic. Right? So we are not doing the right thing. So we need United Nations. But has the United Nations Security Council been able to stop carnage in Gaza? No. So that is why I said we cannot depend on the United Nations alone. We need us to work together. Now China is coming out with another proposal called Global Security Initiative. It is basically counter to UN. So then many countries, oh, this is China is trying to dominate. So you try to kill that. I mean, these are the things that we need. We need us to work together, collaborative effort. If internationally we can't do it, let's do it bilaterally. If bilaterally cannot, let's do unilaterally. Few countries together. So, the last part you asked about what can the academic community do? I think academic community has a greater responsibility because you look at issues differently. Politicians come to power, how many years? 5 years, 10 years maximum? Right? Then they go. But academics, you study for how long? For life. So your thoughts are more important. Your insight, your analyses are critically important. So the academia has a greater role to play in shaping our world, in shaping our security. Please keep on discussing, keep on writing papers, keep on presenting. keep inviting Ambassador of Sri Lanka. No, I mean, have dialogue. Because you, academics knowledge, the professors, deans, your knowledge is very important to the world. So you have to produce concept papers. Right? Now I think China is doing this very big time. They have many academic forums. They give a lot of money to think tanks or research centers, whatever they call it. They send, and I'm working in quite a few of them. And they study and they produce a paper and it is sent to the Central Communist Party or the Central Committee of the Communist Party. Maybe they read. Maybe they take, and USA is one of the best places for research, academia, and many think tanks, and they spend so much of money. Right? Europe, many developed countries, they have a lot of academia working. Now, I'm very happy Indonesia is doing very well in that. But one problem Indonesia is having is many of your discussion don't come in English. That's the problem. I don't know what you're talking about if you don't produce in English. So at least now, of course, we have ChatGPT, we have Google, we can translate, not that difficult. But what I'm saying is, try to produce more academic discourse and make recommendations. One point, make recommendation beyond your territory. Common good. I believe I have, okay, one more point I think you mentioned about the leadership, because that itself is a lecture, right? What her questions are a lecture, right? Countering piracy, we have a lot of task group working in the Gulf of Aden, Western Indian Ocean. Sri Lanka is part of it, right? So we work together as navies to protect the convoys, protect the shipping. And similarly, here in the Malacca Strait, you have joint patrols. India also joining some of them. So you have joint patrol collaboration among the navies, which is working. So when you have an issue, you joint and you deliver. Thank you.
Thank you so much, His Excellency. We have discussed plenty of problems in this session, not just maritime security, but also climate change, foreign policy, and the need for all of developing states, non-aligned states, to stay independent and active. And I should say that the best example of independent and active country is the US and China, because we need to back up our diplomacy with capability, right? I think we have reached the end of our guest lecture session today, because His Excellency must depart from the university at 1:30, so we have to finish at 1. We want to thank His Excellency for his wonderful lecture, very insightful, very informative, and we hope that we can invite you again to our campus. Please give a round of applause for His Excellency Jayanath Colombage. I hope you will still stay in Indonesia. Well, for how long? I don't know. Inshallah. And so we have more opportunities for dialogues. All right, then. Thank you very much, His Excellency. I will give the session back to the MC, or Ibu Nurul, maybe. Yeah. We have a token of appreciation.
Di sini ya.